Hello, I'm Christopher. Welcome back to this channel. Today's topic is the nature of desire and craving. Have you ever paused and noticed how quietly desire shapes your life? A thought appears, perhaps a wish for success, love, recognition, comfort, or peace, and before you know it, your mind begins moving toward it. Sometimes that movement feels inspiring, full of energy and possibility. At other times, it feels restless, almost heavy, as if something inside is endlessly searching for completion. And maybe you have experienced this. You finally achieve something you longed for, only to find that the satisfaction fades sooner than expected. A new desire appears, and the cycle begins again. Why does this happen? Why does the human mind keep reaching? And why can craving sometimes feel stronger than the joy of actually receiving what we wanted? Welcome, dear seeker. In this exploration, we are not here to judge desire or label it as good or bad. Instead, we will gently look at it with clarity and compassion, as one of the most fundamental forces shaping human experience. Across ancient wisdom traditions, philosophical inquiry, and modern neuroscience, we find a shared insight: desire is natural, but misunderstanding desire can lead to suffering. Some teachings describe craving as the root of inner unrest, others see it as a powerful energy that, when understood, can guide us toward meaning and growth. In this video, we will walk together through 6 stages of understanding. We will explore how desire arises in the mind, how it transforms into craving, what spiritual traditions and psychology reveal about it, and how modern science explains the difference between wanting and true satisfaction. Most importantly, we will discover practical ways to live with desire without becoming controlled by it. So take a slow breath, settle into this moment, and let us begin this journey, not to escape desire, but to understand its deeper nature with openness and wisdom. The birth of desire. Let us begin at the very beginning, the moment desire is born. Desire rarely appears suddenly. It often starts as something very small, a sensation, an image, a memory, or a passing thought. The mind notices something pleasant or meaningful, and attention lingers there for just a little longer. That simple act of attention is powerful, because what we repeatedly think about begins to feel important. Ancient teachings observed this process with remarkable precision. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is explained that when the mind repeatedly contemplates an object, attachment gradually forms, and from attachment arises desire. This insight suggests that desire is not random, it is cultivated through focus and repetition. Modern psychology echoes a similar idea. The brain strengthens pathways connected to repeated thoughts, making certain ones feel more urgent over time. In other words, what we dwell on begins to shape what we believe we need. But it is important to understand this gently: desire itself is not a mistake. Desire motivates learning, creativity, relationships, and even spiritual searching. A child's curiosity is a form of desire. A scientist's question begins with desire. Even the wish to understand oneself more deeply is a desire. The challenge arises when we become unconscious of how desire forms. Advertising, social comparison, and constant digital stimulation can plant endless seeds of wanting within us. Sometimes we do not truly choose our desires, we inherit them from the environment around us. So the first step for a seeker is simple awareness. Instead of asking, "How do I stop wanting?" we begin asking, "How did this desire arise?" When we observe the birth of desire with honesty and kindness, something shifts. We begin to see that desire is not an enemy to fight, but a process to understand, and understanding is the first doorway to freedom. How craving turns into suffering. Now that we understand how desire begins, we move into a deeper question: when does desire become suffering? At first, desire can feel light and natural, a simple preference or motivation. But somewhere along the way, it can shift into something heavier. This shift happens when desire becomes craving. Healthy desire says, "This would be nice to have." Craving whispers, "I cannot be okay without this." The difference is subtle but profound. Craving ties our sense of well-being to an outcome that exists in the future. The present moment starts to feel incomplete, as if life cannot truly begin until something changes. Philosophers have long observed this pattern. Arthur Schopenhauer described human life as an endless cycle of wanting, temporary satisfaction, and renewed longing. When one desire is fulfilled, another appears, creating a constant movement of striving that rarely settles into lasting peace. Similarly, in psychological thought, Sigmund Freud reflected on the tension between human impulses and reality, suggesting that lasting satisfaction often remains out of reach because new desires continually arise. The mind, in many ways, is designed to keep seeking. Modern life intensifies this cycle. Social media, advertising, and constant comparison encourage the belief that happiness is always just one achievement, purchase, or experience away. The result is a quiet dissatisfaction that follows us even in moments of success. Craving also narrows perception. When the mind fixates on what is missing, it overlooks what is already present. Gratitude fades, and urgency grows. For a seeker, the key insight is this: suffering does not come merely from desire itself, it comes from the attachment to desire, the belief that fulfillment exists only outside the present moment. Understanding this gently opens space within us, a space where desire can exist without becoming a source of inner conflict. Wisdom from spiritual traditions. For thousands of years, spiritual traditions have looked deeply into the nature of desire, not to condemn it, but to understand its power over the human heart. Let us begin with the Buddhist perspective. The teachings of the Buddha describe craving, or tanha, as a primary cause of suffering. Yet this is often misunderstood. Buddhism does not suggest eliminating all desires, rather, it points toward freedom from clinging, the tight grasping that says, "Things must be this way for me to be at peace." Through awareness and mindful observation, one learns to experience desire without becoming trapped by it. In the Bhagavad Gita, desire is also explored with psychological depth. The text explains that when the mind becomes absorbed in objects or outcomes, attachment grows, and from attachment arise desire, anger, and confusion. The teaching encourages disciplined awareness and action aligned with purpose rather than impulse. Desire is not rejected, it is guided toward higher intention. Mystical traditions across cultures echo a similar idea. Sufi poets speak of transforming worldly longing into a longing for truth. Christian contemplatives describe redirecting desire toward divine love. In many paths, desire becomes a force of awakening when it is purified rather than suppressed. What unites these perspectives is a profound insight: the problem is not desire itself, but forgetting our deeper nature while chasing fleeting experiences. Spiritual teachings invite us to pause and ask, what lies beneath this desire? Is it comfort, validation, connection, or meaning? Does this desire expand my awareness or narrow it? For the seeker, this shift in questioning is powerful. Desire becomes not an obstacle, but a teacher, revealing where attention is placed and what the heart truly seeks. And when desire is seen clearly, it can evolve from restless craving into conscious aspiration, guiding us toward growth and inner clarity. What neuroscience reveals. After exploring ancient wisdom, let us now turn to modern science, because surprisingly, neuroscience echoes many of the same insights. Researchers studying motivation and behavior have discovered something fascinating: the brain distinguishes between wanting and liking. These may sound similar, but they are governed by different neurological systems. Liking refers to the actual experience of pleasure, the satisfaction we feel when something enjoyable happens. Wanting, on the other hand, is the motivational drive that pushes us toward something. Much of this wanting is influenced by dopamine, a neurotransmitter often misunderstood as the pleasure chemical. In reality, dopamine is more closely related to anticipation and pursuit than to enjoyment itself. This explains a curious human experience. Sometimes we intensely crave something, yet once we obtain it, the satisfaction is brief or less meaningful than expected. The brain's reward system is designed to keep us moving, seeking, and exploring, a mechanism that once supported survival but now easily attaches itself to modern stimuli like notifications, shopping, or endless scrolling. Over time, repeated stimulation can strengthen wanting even when actual enjoyment decreases. This is why habits, and even addictions, can persist long after pleasure fades. The brain learns the pattern of pursuit, not necessarily the value of the reward. Understanding this changes how we view craving. It is not simply a moral weakness or lack of discipline, it is partly a biological process deeply wired into human nature. Yet neuroscience also offers hope. Practices such as mindfulness, intentional pauses, and focused attention have been shown to reduce impulsive reactions and increase awareness of cravings as they arise. For the seeker, this insight is liberating. When you realize that craving is a pattern of the brain, you can observe it with curiosity instead of shame. Awareness begins to create distance, and in that distance, choice becomes possible. Transforming craving into conscious energy. If desire is natural and craving is deeply wired into the human mind, the question becomes, what can we do with this energy? Many teachings suggest that the goal is not to suppress desire, but to transform it. Energy that fuels craving can also fuel creativity, learning, and inner growth when directed consciously. Psychology offers an important clue through the concept of flow, described by researcher Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. Flow is a state of deep absorption where attention becomes fully engaged in meaningful activity. In these moments, the restless voice of craving quiets down, because the mind is no longer searching outside itself for completion. Instead, fulfillment arises from the act of doing itself. This shows us that craving often masks a deeper need, not simply for objects or achievements, but for aliveness, connection, and purpose. One practical shift is moving from consumption to creation. Instead of endlessly seeking stimulation, we begin channeling desire into making, building, learning, or serving. The same energy that once chased quick satisfaction becomes a source of focus and expression. Another step is learning to pause. When a craving arises, rather than immediately reacting, we can gently ask, what am I truly seeking right now? Is this a need for rest, comfort, validation, or meaning? Will acting on this bring lasting peace or only brief distraction? This moment of inquiry transforms craving into awareness. Over time, the relationship with desire changes. Instead of being pulled unconsciously by every impulse, we begin choosing where to invest our attention. For the seeker, this is a profound shift. Desire stops being a force that controls life and becomes raw energy that can be shaped intentionally. In this way, craving is not eliminated, it is refined, guided, and gradually aligned with what genuinely nourishes the mind and heart. Living with desire without being ruled by it. As we come toward the final stage of this journey, an important realization begins to emerge: freedom does not mean the absence of desire. Instead, freedom is learning how to live with desire without becoming controlled by it. Desire will continue to arise, this is part of being human. The mind will imagine possibilities, the heart will long for connection, and life will continue to invite movement and change. The difference lies in how we relate to these inner movements. A seeker learns to create a small space between feeling and action. In that space, desire is observed rather than obeyed automatically. Instead of saying, I must have this, the perspective gently shifts to, I notice that desire is present right now. This simple shift transforms experience. The urge no longer defines identity, it becomes just another passing wave in awareness. Practices such as mindful breathing, journaling, quiet reflection, or simply pausing before reacting can strengthen this inner space. With time, you begin to notice that cravings rise, peak, and fade, even when not acted upon. This realization brings a quiet sense of confidence and calm. Living this way does not make life dull or detached. On the contrary, it allows joy to be experienced more fully because it is no longer tied to constant striving. Pleasure can be appreciated without clinging, and disappointment can be felt without collapsing into frustration. Gradually, desire becomes a guide rather than a master. It points toward what matters, but it no longer dictates your peace. And perhaps the deepest understanding is this: contentment is not found by ending desire, but by discovering a stable awareness that exists beneath the endless movement of wanting. From this place, you can engage with life wholeheartedly, pursuing goals, loving deeply, creating freely, while remaining grounded in inner balance. Dear seeker, as we gently come to the end of this journey, let us take a moment to reflect on what we have discovered together. Desire is not a flaw in human nature. It is a natural movement of life, a force that pushes us to explore, to create, to connect, and to grow. Yet when desire becomes unconscious, it transforms into craving, pulling us away from the peace that already exists within the present moment. Through wisdom traditions, philosophy, and modern science, a common message quietly emerges: freedom does not come from destroying desire, but from understanding it. When we see how desire arises, how the mind clings, and how cravings rise and fade, something begins to soften inside us. We realize that fulfillment cannot be permanently captured through endless reaching. Instead, it appears in moments of awareness, in the pause between impulse and action, in the ability to observe without immediately chasing, and in the gentle acceptance of what is already here. This does not mean we stop dreaming or striving. Rather, we learn to pursue goals with clarity instead of desperation, with openness instead of fear. Desire becomes a guide, not a ruler. As you leave this reflection, I invite you to try a small practice today. When a strong desire arises, simply pause for a few breaths. Notice it. Feel it. Ask yourself what it is truly seeking beneath the surface. You may be surprised by the quiet understanding that emerges. If this journey resonated with you, carry one idea forward: peace is not found at the end of craving, it is found in the awareness that watches craving come and go. Thank you for sharing this space of reflection. May your path be guided by curiosity, compassion, and clarity. Until we meet again, stay gentle with yourself, and keep seeking.